So, the Cybermen. Probably one of Doctor's most iconic and scariest monsters. And since their recent return in Nightmare in Silver, that creepiness that they had from the 60s has really seemed to struck back. So, let's take a journey through time and see what makes these guys so scary. So, what makes the 10th planet Cybermen so scary? Well, these were the first ever Cybermen to step on the scene, and to be honest, they haven't got a lot of elements that make them scary, but they do have a couple that I will point out in a second. But if you're like me and you grew up, in the 20th and 21st century, they were just too bulky to be taken seriously, and they had cloth faces as well. But these Cybermen here have two fantastic elements that almost, overwrite everything. Look at that face. That face is probably one of the most emotionless Cybermen faces. It's just so lifeless and dull that it's eerie, and it's staring into your soul, and I personally think that it's, absolutely terrifying. Secondly, it's also very silly, but also very creepy. The way they spoke in a robotic but also human tone, but it's the emphasis that they put at the end of every word that almost, it sent chills down your spine, really. And that's what makes these Cybermen scary. Now, let's talk about the first redesign of the Cybermen. Now, this clip is taken from the classic episode 2 in Cybermen, and if you know me very well, you'll know that this is my all-time favourite episode of Doctor Who. While this time it was the voice that overall made them more scarier, you can't help but look at that face there. The face is less emotionless now, but it has a hint of emotion in it. It almost looks like the cyber controller there is smiling at us, which I think is terrifying, the fact that now we know a bit more that these are converted humans that have been transformed into Cybermen. But again, I'll go back to the way they talk. The electronic way they talk, that absolutely, it gave actually me nightmares. Hearing that voice in your head, or if you heard that voice in a dark alley, you run for the hills. Also, they walked very creepily, these Cybermen. They walked, like they were tiptoeing and they were going to sneak up behind you and just grab you and pull you away and make you into one of them. And I think that's why Tomb of the Cybermen is probably my favourite, because they are the most scary at that stage. No, you may want to excuse me, I'm actually going to skip past these Cybermen, these ones here, the ones we saw in The Invasion and Revenge of the Cybermen, these, redesigns, because personally there wasn't a lot that made these ones scary. I think The Invasion was a scary episode because of the music and the tone Cybermen had, but when they were converted in colour, their first story was a wee bit rubbish, to be honest, and I don't know, probably my least favourite Cyberman story, because I didn't enjoy it that much, and it didn't give me any chills. Okay, so what makes the Earthshock Cybermen, those ones right there, scary? Now, there's not a lot to these Cybermen really at all that makes them genuinely scary, but there's one thing that kind of just overrules all that. These Cybermen are tacticians. These Cybermen think on their feet a bit more now. The Cybermen know that hurting the Doctor's friends will make the Doctor become their servant, and personally that's terrifying. It's terrifying that they can toy with the Doctor on such an emotional level. Yeah, the voices were a little bit ridiculous because they were a little bit too over-emotional. Didn't bother me that much, but the one thing the Earthshock Cybermen make up for the most is this one scene at the very end of part 1.
Destroy them! Destroy them at once!
Who doesn't love that line right there, and that scene at the end of part 1 when it happens? Totally unexpected. Well, unless you knew the Cybermen were going to be in Earthshock already. But so amazing! And they're pretty much going to be the same for Attack of the Cybermen and the Silver Nemesis ones. They're pretty much the same design, and they have the same tactician attitude. So there's not really much more to say. They kind of just kept up the kind of scariness, but not as well as they had it in the 60s. So then we come to 2006, Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel, the returning two-parter of these bad boys. Now, these Cybermen are a lot more bigger and robotic, and rather than being a whole human being converted now, that's bone, flesh and organs, gooey stuff, it's just the brain now, and that the brain is the key to everything. Now, for physical appearance, I think it's the faces again that really gives them, that scary edge. It's completely emotionless almost. There is some slight, hints of emotion towards the very end of this two-parter that shows, that these Cybermen used to be human, but, apart from that, it's completely emotionless. It's almost, one step too far, but it works. Not much really else to say about these guys, they pretty much, stayed the same until, Nightmare and Silver when they changed. They got a couple of, nice new attachments, like, the gun arm thingy, which, kind of made up for them being slow, they could kill you from a distance now. And, the voice thing was a wee bit stupid that they changed to in the next Doctor, but I can get over that. Personally, yeah, these guys were cool, no matter what anybody else says. So, what about the new boys? What about the Nightmare and Silver Cybermen? First of all, I should point out, I'm probably going to go over a lot of stuff that I chatted about in my review of Nightmare and Silver. You can get that there, in the orange outlined box. And I'm probably going to go over a wee teeny bit of what Billy went over when the new Cybermen were announced. You can get his video there in the yellow box, just underneath the orange one. Check out those two videos if you are interested after you watch this video, but I'm probably going to be repeating myself a wee bit, so I do apologise. Now, these were definitely the scariest Cybermen of the New Who era. Going back to a more 60s design, these Cybermen, what can I say? That face just took me right back to 60s Cybermen. Emotionless, terrifying. Does it have a wee bit of emotion in it? No, I don't think it has any emotion in it. It's bloody terrifying, and I whimpered when I first saw these guys on screen. Not the pictures. When I first saw them in action, I went, woo. I don't know what that noise was, to be honest. And they're faster again now, they move faster. They've got a wee bit of clunking noises to themselves, just, bring them into this new age, and the fact, that they are powered robots still, but not as much clunking. And, even if there is a wee bit of clunking, it doesn't matter. They can still now creep up on you, and they can still, they don't stomp slowly anymore. They clunk fast. So, they're gonna grab you and you're doomed. Unless you kill it first. That's rule number 1. Always kill Cybermen first. But damn, some of those new upgrades they can do. And I was talking about one in specific. The one where the head turns like this. Like that. Holy... Ah! The way the head turns around. Terrifying. But now the episode's digested, some people are actually kind of complaining a wee bit about this episode, about how these Cybermen are going downwards. I personally think we're taking the opposite direction. I'm with the majority. This is only the minority that's saying we're going downward. The majority, I think we're going further. I think we're going back to the 60s, which is a good thing. Going back to the 60s is always a good thing. And we're finally going to get the Cybermen we deserve. So, in conclusion, how scary are the Cybermen? They're pretty damn scary. They're up there in the top 5 of the scariest Doctors to ever roam Doctor Who's world. Yeah, they've had their downpour like every monster. Even the Daleks have had their downpour of not being scary and just, actually being plainly amusing. I'm not talking about, the first time we saw the Paradigm Daleks or anything. But they definitely are one of Doctor Who's scariest monsters and will continue to be as long as the show lives. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I think that's enough Cybermen for one day.
Let's get on to the real story here. And let's get on to what we're all here to talk about, which is, of course, the casting of Peter Capaldi as the 12th Doctor. We don't know whether he's the 12th Doctor because of what's going on with John Hurt.